Hello everyone and welcome back to our building series of tutorial videos. In this video we're going to carry on from where we left off last time, which was the able to hook up and power up our other blocks and make them start producing stuff. So currently it's not actually producing anything, it's just doing a light on and light off. We're going to change that. So we want our block here to produce minerals that we can then use to build other things and upgrade things and so on and so forth. So let's get started with that. So for this I need to first of all set up my block here. So this steel block here I'm going to rename into a mining block. Okay, it's a mining block, and we're going to make a child of that mining block. And this is going to be mining, and we'll call it a copper mine. Okay, so this is going to be a mining block that is going to be mining copper. And it's going to generate copper at a steady rate based on whether or not it has power. So let's go into the mining block, which is going to be the parent class of it, and go into the full blueprint editor. Now this thing has no code on it whatsoever, but it does have what it has inherited from the placeable block. And if you remember last time we worked on this, we had a produce button. Okay, so for this I'm going to get rid of the point light now because we don't need it anymore. That was just us to test it, and I'm going to get rid of the stuff that's inside of my produce custom event and hit compile and save. Then go back to my mining block, and I should be able to now right click and search for the event produce. There it is. And if I have stuff on my placeable block here that is like going to be using stuff as well here, I would add a parent function to this as well. Now, although I don't have anything on here, what I might do here just to be safe for future development is just add a call to parent function anyway. That way, if I do add anything back onto a placeable block, it doesn't break this at all. So on event produce, this is only going to get called if we have power. So we need to check that we actually have power. So we're going to right click and do is powered. And we're going to put that into a branch. Okay, so a mining block is going to have a type of item, and also the number of the item it can store, as well as a maximum it can store as well. So on this variable here, we need to store the number of its inventory. So current inventory. And that will be a integer because we're dealing with whole numbers. And then we're going to have another integer based variable, which is going to be the inventory's maximum size. So inventory max size. And as I said, we need to determine what we are mining with this thing. So currently, I've got nothing I can give it to indicate what it is it'll be mining. So what I'm going to have to do is indicate on my item database a particular type of mineral that this thing can mine. So I'm going to go into my inventory and look at the item data table. And in here, we're going to add a new row to this. So I'm going to go add new row, and the row name is going to be copper. And on here, the item name here is going to be copper. And the thumbnail, I've already imported the thumbnail actually, so I'm going to right click on here and go invert or copper. You can use any image you like, obviously, totally up to you. This thing will have no mesh, it will just be a thing that you just send like without a physical representation. So that would be just like that. Hit save. So now we've got copper part of our item data table. We want to use this to tell what this block is mining. So in here, I'm going to go into variables here and go item, actually the mining item. And we'll change the type of this to the same as our row name, which is going to be name. Hit compile. So on event produce, going to do the parent function, and then we're going to check if we're powered. If we are powered, then we're going to get our current inventory, and we're going to increase 1 by that. So add 1 to the inventory, and then set the current inventory back. Now, to use the inventory max size, we need to clamp it. So drag out inventory max size and choose get. And then from the +1, you can do a clamp integer. And that will go into the current set inventory. And the max will be our inventory max size. So that way, we won't ever go above our maximum size. Okay? So there is adding an item to our thing. So hit compile and hit save, and that's it. Now on our mining copper block, you're going to open it up, and on the right hand side we can set its current inventory to 0. Inventory max size we'll set to 20, and inventory item will be the name of copper. Block row name, we'll call this one mining copper, and we'll have to add that into our block database as well. Power consumption we'll leave these as they are. I think they're quite nice. Compile, and we'll say it takes wood and metal to build. Yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, hit save and close that. Next, I'm going to go into my inventory block data table, and in here we need to add a new row to this. And this is going to be the mining copper. And it's important that your naming conventions stay the same throughout. That way you don't accidentally type in the wrong name. So this would be mining drill : copper. Thumbnail, I don't have a thumbnail for it, but description. This cheap and ineffective drill will dig up the smallest quantities of copper. The ingredients for this thing, we're going to add those in, and the ingredients for this thing are going to be the same as our steel block. So let's keep that the same. Go wood 10 and metal 4. And the block class, I'm going to change from none to our mining copper. Hit save. I just realised I spelled copper wrong. Let's just fix that. I'll put Cooper. There we go. Okay, so now we need to add that to our user interface so we can actually build this thing. And there you go, it's added it already to it. Just make sure it's all correct. So we've got a standard block, a steel block, solar panel, and a mining drill copper. And that will do. Okay. So next, we need to be able to tell what the contents of our copper generator is. So we've got something similar to that already with the power consumption, which is the power panel. So what I want to do is make a duplicate of that and edit it to work with our mining block instead. So I'm going to right click on this and duplicate this to the mining panel. And open it up. Now in here, we're going to change some things around. So the first text block here, we're going to rename that one to mining block name underscore text. Current power we'll get rid of. We'll get rid of most of this content in the middle, as we don't need it. Instead, what we're going to have in that box here, we'll get rid of those as well. There we go. So what we have in here instead, though, is a thumbnail, which will have a text on it saying how many there are in it. So let's add those into it. So I've got a horizontal box here. I'm going to drag an image in. And that image, I'm going to, by default, set it to my image here that I previously brought in, just so I can see what I'm dealing with. And I'm just going to increase the size of that a little bit. So let's do 112, double what it currently is. There we go. And I'm going to have the number of how many we've got in the corner of it. So to do that, you right click on the image and wrap with an overlay, and then you drag some text inside the overlay as well. And there you go, so you can see both on top of each other. That text we're going to make sure is bound to the top right, so you change the horizontal alignment to the right hand side and to the top, and you want to change the text justification to the right as well. So if I change it where it says text block to say 20, it'll appear in the top right of the box there. Okay, I quite like that. We'll leave that as is, and we'll change the name of this one to inventory quantity underscore text, and tick is variable. Again, anything that's going to be changing throughout the game, you want to make sure it is variable. This image will be variable already, but I'm going to change the name of it to item thumbnail image. And we are now going to put some text next to the overlay. Like, there it is. And this text is going to say, click here to pick up contents. And we're going to wrap that. So scroll down further on the right hand side, you'll find the wrapping section, and we can auto wrap that so it doesn't go over the edge there. Let's give that a little bit of padding as well on the left. Perfect. So this can be the instruction for the players to click on this icon to make it so they can pick up the items that this block has received. So to do that, we need to make this a button. So if you go to the overlay, right click on overlay, wrap with button, it will now become a button. And inside there, we can leave most of the stuff alone. So just change the name of it here to inventory button. I'm just going to change the background color to be transparent. There you go. Okay, so we've got text block, which is going to be the name of the block, the inventory button with the overlay of the text of how many we got, and the image of the whatever we're collecting, the instructions to the player, and the instruction to close it. Hit compile and go to the graph. Now, the reason why you get a lot of errors is because this is all designed for the power, so we need to change a lot of this because a lot of this stuff doesn't exist anymore. So this whole entire back half we don't need. So we'll get rid of this, and we'll get rid of this part, only just keeping these first few bits here where we disable the player's movement. And when we destruct it, returning the player's movement back to the player. Cool. Okay, excellent. So next, I want to get rid of the power block and the solar panel options here. So delete those. Inventory button we want to keep, this we want to keep, that we want to keep, and that we want to keep. Power source name, we're going to delete that. Oh no, actually we'll keep that. We'll keep that because we're using that here. We'll just rename it to block name. And I think that's it here. I think that's all looking good. Excellent. Okay, so we need to be able to get the name of the block from the row data. So for here, I'm going to change the block name here. Actually, what might be quite good here is if we change this from text to name. That'll break this bit of code here in the middle, which is fine. We're going to just delete that for now. Just keep the disabled movement in. So that block name, we're going to use that to get the information from a data table. So if we drag from there, get data table row, and we're going to use the data table from the item data table, no, the block data table. And from there, we're going to store that as a variable. So promote to variable, and this will be block row data. And if I were to split this, you can see we've got the name, thumbnail of the block, the description of the block, the ingredients, takes, and the block class. So we want the name there, and we're going to take the block name and put it into the mining block name text. So get text and set text with the name. Okay. Next, we need to be able to get hold of whatever item it is that this panel is going to be using. So for that, we need a new variable, and that variable would be the item name. And similarly, you're going to drag out item name, choose get, and get data table row. This time choosing the item data table, and promoting the out row for that to a variable. And this would be the item row data. Now we can split that and get access to the name of the item, the thumbnail, and the mesh. So the thumbnail is what we want. So I'm going to drag out our item and thumbnail image, choose get, and from there set brush from texture. Plug that in and plug in a thumbnail to the texture. Hit compile. So we only need to feed this thing two pieces of information: the block name that is going to be using it, and the item name that the block is trying to build. So with the item name, just you want to make it editable and exposed on spawn. So expose on spawn and hit compile and save. Okay, next we want to get the data from requiring the inventory quantity. So for that, we're going to get that from our inventory, our object itself. Okay, so we're going to go into variables, add new variable, and do mining block. And the type for that will be a mining block object reference. Again, make that editable and exposed on spawn. We can drag that out now, choose get, and then from there we can get the item name as well as the the quantity of the inventory. So if we're going to use the item name, we need to have this before we try and get item data. So let's move that along. So for mining block, we can get item, mining item, and we're going to set that to our item name. Okay, next we're going to take the mining block and we are going to get the quantity. Get current inventory. And we're going to set that value to our inventory quantity text. Get that. Set text. And we're going to plug that directly in from there. So this is all happening on the construct event, meaning it only happens once. So we will need a refresh node to update it. And we will be refreshing it before we do the item quantity here, because that would be where it's refreshing and changing mostly. So with this, we're going to drag out and do a custom event, and we're going to call that one refresh panel. That way it'll update the information inside of that panel. Hit compile, and we are done there. So close that now, and that is it. So the next job we're going to do in the next episode is get to display the panel on screen and then tile those things up so we can see the power block powering up the mining block, which is then generating the ore, which we can then click and collect. So join us in the next episode right now over on patreon.com/RyanLaley, where you can watch that part plus many other videos from my channel before anyone else. Big thank you to all of my patrons and YouTube members for their continued support. If you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really does help out a lot. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.